concise history of the region of Ribera del Duero and how it has developed as a wine region?
Well, I'll try to make it brief, but wine has been made here for the last 2,000 years or more, like all over Spain, most of part of Europe, because the Romans were well known to have introduced the cultivation of grapes and making of wine where they went, and they were in Spain for many, many centuries. But the most modern history of Ribera del Duero starts maybe about 200 years ago, somehow when Vega Sicilia decided to start here. You know, there's a world-known super quality winery. And they were here along with other top wineries, such as Protus, for instance, and many others, before the authorities decided to give the status of appellation controlee, which we call Denominacion de Origin in Spain, which happened in 1982. So Vega Sicilia was 100 years before here, making superb wines, because the region has always been privileged for quality wines, but it was not known or not officially declared or recognized until 1982.
Fantastic. And when that DO rules were written up, what were the kind of main defining characteristics of the region in terms of varieties, the kind of wines that you can produce?
Something very, very interesting and funny, that peculiar, is not well known, is that when the national agricultural authorities came here to check whether there was enough quality, etc., for giving the DO status, they were thinking only of the rosé wines. Of course, red wines were made, because they had never made rosé, but the region was famous in Spain for the rosé wines to drink along with the famous roasted lamb of the region. And so they came to give it a status of rosé, appellation controlee. And that's what they did as they came. But then some of them said, well, listen, the red wines are not bad, they're extremely good as well. Why don't we add the red wines to the... So I said, okay, why not? So in the red wines, which is now famous for, were nearly out of the foundation of the DO. But of course, the Tempranillo has always been grown here, which we call Tinto Fino, is another name for this typical Spanish variety. Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot and Malbec were also grown because Vega Sicilia had them, so they were accepted. And Grenache as well, because there was a local cooperative with about 100 hectares of Grenache at the time when we started the Denominacion de Origin, so they was allowed as well. But in my opinion, and in fact at Alto we use 100% Tempranillo, we think is that the grape that absolutely excels in this region because of climate and soil. So many wineries, we are one of them, use 100% Tempranillo, while some others decide to add the spice of Cabernet or Merlot into it.
Fantastic. And can you give us your thoughts as a wine producer of why Tempranillo is so well suited to this place, and perhaps give us some tips about the climate, the soils, the geology of the region, and how that interplays with the variety?
Well, I guess it's the same story in many, many other regions in the world. It's not that the Tempranillo is particularly well suited. It is, but I mean, is that it's trial and error. Probably many grape varieties were planted here. In fact, there are still some people who say, oh, I love Pinot Noir, I'll have a few lines of Pinot Noir. Then the result is a disaster and it uproots the Pinot Noir. So it's a trial and error, and over the centuries, Tempranillo absolutely gave fantastic results, while other grapes didn't give results at all, or medium quality results. So more than the Tempranillo is well adapted to the region, is that the region has decided, had chosen somehow, by selecting one from another, that Tempranillo is a really great grape to grow here.
Great. And what kind of, in your Alto blend, you talk about it being an assemblage of Tempranillo. So can you explain to us the very different exposures, the different slopes, the different soils that you find within Ribera del Duero?
Yeah, you see, when in 1999, Mariano Garcia and I, Mariano was Vega Sicilia's winemaker for 30 years. I had the pleasure and honor to team up with him and start this winery. And when we got together to decide on our project, we said, okay, we're going to work 100% with Tempranillo, but not only with just Tempranillo like that, but with different types of Tempranillo, because the region has a tremendous variation of soils. That's extremely important. We have sand, we have cobblestone, we have pebbles, we have chalk, we have clay, and combinations of all these. And we have as well different a variation of microclimates because of altitudes. We are all along the River Duero. 80 kilometers of the River Duero into our region, which starts at more than 900 meters of altitude and leaves the Ribera del Duero at 750. So we have 150 or more different meters of altitude in different villages. But even more important than all that, variation of soils or climate, is the variation of Tempranillos. If you look at old Tempranillos, let's say 6-year-old onwards, you can clearly identify different types of Tempranillo. I don't want to call them clones because a clone would be the same, but different types of Tempranillo. Take the village of Fresnillo, for instance. They have a much less vigorous than the average plants with extremely interesting, long and very airy clusters. When you go to La Aguilera and the same 6-year-old plant, you find a very strong, big built with one big trunk and maybe 5 branches, extremely long sarments, very vigorous, and big clusters that still give you a very high quality, but completely different style of wine. So Alto is based on these differences. We harvest from 9 different villages, from vineyards that we own or rent, and we ferment it separately because every village has a different style. We ferment them separately, we age them in oak separately for the first 12 months, then we start merging one village with another to end up with a whole bunch of kind of the assemblage of all the villages together.
Excellent. And is there any kind of movement within the region to classify those different genetic variations of Tempranillo, or do you think that might be a work for the future?
No, not for genetic variation, which is a pity, because I think it's something that maybe should be done. Maybe we should start doing it ourselves. But there was years ago a study of the soils. Because of this tremendous variation of soils, we have already a map of soils of the region. So we can say this village or this part of this village is better adapted to that other part for this grape variety or for another. This was done at my times as director of the Consejo Regulador, so nearly 20 years ago. And but unfortunately, it's not been used. I mean, the information is there. The study, which was a 5-year study by the University of Madrid of our kind of a soil map of the Ribera del Duero, is done, but unfortunately and surprisingly, is not being used to select the best plots to plant.
Mm-hmm. And then my last question is very much reflecting on your experience at the Consejo. How do you see the region has transitioned, and where do you think the kind of future of the region is going?
Well, I have to say that in my opinion the future is fantastic, but you have to take into consideration that I'm not from this area, so it's not because my village is the best or my land. I was born in Andalusia, so I'm somehow a stranger here, although I'm 20 years here now. So my honest opinion is that the region has a tremendous quality, comparable to the top regions of the world. We're not comparable in terms of prestige because it takes 200, 300, 400 years. Burgundian people have their records of how the harvest was in 12th century. We don't. So it'll take a few hundred years to get there, but I'm sure that Ribera del Duero will be considered in the future as one of the top regions of the world because of the quality of the climate, the soil, and this Tempranillo that grows here to perfection.
Fabulous. Cheers to that. Thank you.
Thank you.